I think physics background people and physical chemistry background people are going to enjoy it, and apart from that, material engineering students are going to enjoy it. I'm not sure about biology and pharma background people. I can't promise because it's too deep actually. So how does an electromagnetic radiation interact with matter? It's a vast topic. I can teach it for days and days and days actually. If you understand that, everything else becomes uh, very easy. Hmm? So to summarize the points, interaction of electromagnetic radiation with any matter is depends upon surrounding medium. So dielectric constant or polarizability of atoms present in the surrounding medium influence the interaction of EM radiation with the matter. Okay, so dielectric constant of the surrounding medium matters a lot actually. The polarizability, optical density. Okay? So all these things matter a lot. Okay, that's how when you design the eyeglasses. So these things are. This is the point number one. Um, is really taken care of a lot actually. Hmm. So second point, size and shape of the matter, particle size in comparison to the wavelength. So finest example of this statement is uh, the variation in the color of sunset from Kerala to Gujarat. If you drive along the west coast of India, and you will find that different seasons, different times, the color of the sunset varies a lot. That is just because of the light interact differently uh, with the size and shape of the particulate matter, which is there, which is present in that place at that time. Okay, the time and space, and the humidity and temperature. It all matters actually. So that's the reason that depending upon the particle size, uh, which are suspended, pollution level and everything. So there is a huge variation in the color of the sky during the sunset, and you can see actually the variation of the color. In my light scattering slide, I showed various colors and I show physical explanation. So that is all related to ellipsometry also. Um, Obviously, third point, metallic and dielectric nature of the matter, which I'm going to discuss today. Energy of the EM waves. You know that frequency matters a lot, and it's basically the interaction of the light with matter is highly frequency dependent, right? Okay, so you can see that. For higher frequencies up till until near IR, nucleus does not participate. Nucleus does not behaves like a fat boy who is like sedentary boy. I mean, it does not really. He's not interested in the oscillating electric field, so it just remains wherever it is actually the nucleus. So only electrons are being light charged particles. They sway around with the uh, incoming electric field vector. So they find themselves at ease, and they can interact with any frequency, being light particles. So, but nucleus does not participate. The nucleus starts participating when the frequency becomes much lower and wavelength is larger. I mean, in IR, you know that IR, that concept comes basically. So some of the material which do not absorb radiation in the um, uh, there is no electronic transition. For example, some wide band gap semiconductors. So they start absorbing heavily in the IR because their this IR absorption is because of the uh, the dipole moment and other things, bending and stretching and all those things. So it is possible because of the reduced frequency. So otherwise, it's not possible, right? I mean, the question is that why the frequency of bending and stretching is so low, that answers the question, right? So at different wavelength, the behavior is very different. Angle of incident matters. We have seen that distance traveled in the medium. Obviously, Beard-Lambert law. You know that extension. becomes more and more. Not only that, actually, this is number 6 principle will be explained in the afternoon by students, that in ellipsometry we vary the angle. What is the reason that we vary the angle? So basically, when you do the measurements at longer in the medium, and we can extract more information about the medium because path length becomes longer, and uh, that is true only for mediums which do not have very large refractive index. So the light should not be bent too much. So that is, crystallinity of the material is hugely influences the interaction of matter, anisotropy and everything. It's a really important topic. So I will now switch the slides and let us look at the other slide. And there is, I would like to warn you that there is a bit of amount of text because these are just notes rather than a formal presentation. It is only for me and my students. So I normally don't make it cosmetically appealing, these slides. So these slides may not be cosmetically appealing. So excuse me for that, but they are highly important. Uh, Physical basis of scattering and absorption, you have to really understand that. So the book which I would like to uh, suggest for the brave hearts among you, daredevils and adventurers, okay, you read this book, Absorption and Scattering of Light by Small Particles, Craig Bohren and this is Huffman. It is one of my favorite books. Actually, I mean, believe me, it's an amazing book. There is another book, similar book, but there are 2 books actually. That is amazing book. For ellipsometry, I would like to suggest the book by Palik et al. And then Fujiwara's book is the most famous one. But it is translated in English from Japanese, so the English is a little bit odd. But the meaning is not lost. So Fujiwara's book you can read for spectroscopic ellipsometry, and that's it. These 2 books, if you read, then your entire optics, forget about ellipsometry, but other areas of the optics will be clear as your glacial water actually, okay, from Himalaya. Okay, so scattering of electromagnetic wave by any system is related to the heterogeneity of the system. This heterogeneity can be on the molecular scale or on the scale of aggregation of many molecules. So it's not necessary that you have, for example, you dissolve salt into the water or sugar into the water. So you have heterogeneity at the molecular level because the interaction of sugar molecules or ionic level, salt will be very different than the water molecules. So light scattering from sugar molecules, so this entire system is highly heterogeneous. But if you compare at the molecular level, right, it's the same with our air. Air is highly heterogeneous system at the molecular level, but the optical density is too low. Distance between molecules is too large, so that's why we don't really care too much about that. And but if you look at the solid objects, for example, you look at a bunch of gold nanoparticles, like whatever shape you want. I'm arbitrarily putting some shapes. Actually, I'm not very mindful about the shapes. Just okay. So if these gold nanoparticles are highly homogeneous within the particles, so but outside there is a different medium, there are the surfactant molecules, and then there is some solvent. So you can see that within the particle, the system is quite homogeneous, but from particle to particle, so there is a inhomogeneity. So light will scatter here from every molecule, right? Light will scatter from every molecule. When I say scattering, I will explain in detail what we mean by scattering, because it's a often confused term actually. Scattering is highly confused term. Scattering actually is a very large term, and it encompasses reflection, refraction, diffraction, absorption, extinction, everything can be basically considered in large term as scattering. Everything is actually scattering. Okay, and scattering happens whenever there is an inhomogeneity in the system. Not only that, please note that we are considering these particles as stationary, but in the real system there is a density fluctuation. So each molecule is moving around its position within the time scale of interaction of that light wave. I mean, within the time zone when this light is interacting with this particle, that molecule may not be stationary. Forget about the air or liquid, but for solids also, please note that the time scale of I mean, we are not considering that, but atoms are not stationary in the dipoles or whatever, whatever atoms which consist of solids, they are not sitting at their own position. So they are moving actually. It depends upon the temperature and bonding and everything. But so that makes life more complex actually. Okay, we take mean position. So when you consider light scattering, you have to basically if you are a purist, you have to consider even small density fluctuations here and there actually, right, everywhere. So please note that. So that heterogeneity actually is heterogeneity is reflected by the change in the refractive index. In fact, refractive index is basically also basically I would say that matter of convenience actually. I mean, you call some physical property as a matter of convenience as refractive index. Basically, it is connected to the polarizability of the atoms actually. Refractive index is directly connected to the polarizability of those systems. Please note that. You can call refractive index, it's more of a, I would say that it is pseudo-term. I mean, it tells you that how much light, how much that medium has power to bend light. Before that many things else happen actually, right? So refractive index, जब हम बात करते हैं तो हम बोलते हैं अरे हाँ लाइट कितनी बेंड हो रही है, कितनी स्लो हो रही है, right? How much light is getting slowed down, but those are actually just the consequences. It's that cause, we are not discussing the cause, we are discussing the effect. So it's basically cause and effect. So once we don't understand what is bending the light, what is at the atomic scale, it's very difficult to us to understand it fully, the light scattering. And this knowledge, I am repeating it, that it will help you in many other areas, not just in spectroscopic lipsometry. It's just a fundamental science actually, irrespective of application. Okay, so matter is composed of a discrete electrical charges, electron and proton, right? If an obstacle, for example, obstacle can be your thin film, or in ellipsometry, that's an obstacle. Light is coming happily from the source, and then that obstacle has come, right? Obstacle, it may be continuous obstacle. We call it like from our experience, we call it as a continuous, but nothing, for a physicist, nothing is continuous. There is nothing, no continuity. We can question this, that what do you mean by continuity? Continuity at what scale, right? So every obstacle, we call it like a smooth film. Nothing is smooth actually. Okay, please note that. We discussed this yesterday in the theory session, that it is related to the wavelength of the light and everything else. And I think student demonstrated in the afternoon by showing you the reflection of the light. And so if an obstacle, which could be single electron or atom or a molecule or a collection of atom, either it is a liquid or solid, whatever, is eliminated. So everything is included, right? Nothing is excluded here. Okay, any obstacle, please note that. Don't separate it in the we are not categorizing it into the phase of the matter or whatever. Everything is included. Finally, everything is collection of some atoms from the periodic table, and every atom is just an imaginary boundary of a collection of few electrons, protons, and neutrons, right? So when this is limited by electromagnetic wave, electrical charges in the obstacles are set into the oscillatory motions by the electron. Please, this is the key. This is the key. So you have to go, the problem with students I teach in all my classes is that they look at the matter as a collection of atoms. If you, then the learning stops actually. Many people don't even look at the atoms. Biologists, they look at the molecules. They never look at the periodic table. They tell me that we never look at the, and chemists, they mostly look at the matter as a collection of atoms. Physicists, they don't even look at the atoms. For them, atom melts actually. For physicists, they don't consider atom is just a fiction actually, right? Atom is just an imaginary space where some electrons, some protons, some neutrons are dancing together. So you have to forget atomic boundaries. Then only you can understand. You have to directly talk to electrons actually, right? So
Sir,
yes.
sir, sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
I
no, no,
want to
don't say sorry. You are right to.
actually, sir, if suppose if we have some material and we incident some natural light on that, and
Yes.
so that material absorb, scatter, or uh, means so there whatever the property they exhibit, means after interaction with the light, means at what property they means they we can predict it will absorb or scatter or diffract the light. So on which property it will depend?
This is going to be clear. This is the purpose of my today's talk. So please hold on. Bear with me for half an hour or 1 hour. It will be clear. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah. After this is the actually purpose. This is very deep question, Anand, which you have asked. Yeah.
Okay.
So uh, so keep noting your questions and trouble me at any time. Okay. So when you Anand, your question answer to your question is actually starting in this slide itself. So please pay attention that so these electrical charges, electrons and protons will oscillate. Okay. When I say protons, I already clarified that protons are inside the nucleus, heavy nucleus, and normally they do not participate actually at higher frequencies. Please be, but that does not mean that at lower frequencies they will not participate. But here we are just letting them go. We are not considering their existence, right? The Frank Condon principle in chemistry, physical chemistry, spectroscopy they teach. Okay, but physicists, they don't I mean, we don't learn that way, but chemistry people, they know. Okay, the nucleus is considered as stationary. Okay, anyway, so these accelerated electrical charges radiate electromagnetic energy in all the direction. Please note that. So as I explained yesterday, that these electrons are so that this is happening when you consider reflection, refraction, diffraction, whatever interaction you name it. You can name it anything, but this is what is happening. You can name your matter anything. You can name it liquid, you can name it solid, you can name it plasma, you can name it gas, you can name it metal, you can name everything else. But this is happening everywhere, wherever you have an atom actually, and wherever you have electron which are orbiting, and electromagnetic light is coming. So this is unavoidable. Everything else what you see in day-to-day life or in your instruments is basically manifestation of this basics. Everything manifest from this root. तो ये जड़ है, ये स्लाइड एक्चुअली जड़ है. ये समझ में आ गया आपको? ये समझ में तो आ गया आपको, पर माइंड में आपको फीड करना पड़ेगा. यू हैव टू प्रोग्राम दिस सेंटेंस, दिस स्लाइड इनटू योर माइंड ऑल द टाइम व्हेन यू थिंक of electromagnetic wave. It is serious because it takes a lot of practice. You may feel like it is a simple slide. यार सर क्या बोर कर रहे हैं स्लाइड पे, इतना ज्यादा जोर दे रहे हैं. It will take you time to absorb this and apply. It is easy to read. These are just few sentences. Please trust me. Please trust me. This is a serious thing. You have to apply it actually in the day-to-day life. Whenever you walk on the street, whenever you see anything, you start applying it, and you have to feed it in your brain, and then you will see the magic. Magic will happen, and all the optics will be getting slowly clear. If you forget this slide, then everything will be confusing for you.
Sir,
Okay. Yes.
Sir, can we understand the scattering with the help of Rutherford scattering also?
See, what is Rutherford scattering? Rutherford scattering is a very, very narrow observation. It is only for charged particle, right? You can apply. It is not for electromagnetic radiation. Rutherford scattering. Rutherford scattering is only for charged
Sir,
particles.
in means there is a gold foil, and we bombard that gold foil with the X-rays or gamma rays. If it is a gamma rays, so that is belongs to means electromagnetic wave, gamma rays.
Yes.
So gamma rays is also means electromagnetic wave.
No. The Rutherford backscattering is applied. If you know the original formula, Rutherford's, I teach it in detail, down to the equations. I actually modify those Rutherford equations and apply it in theory of electron scattering. So Rutherford and his students. Actually, Rutherford was not responsible. His students actually gave this theory. They bombarded alpha particles actually onto the, you can say, and you can take any foil. So alpha particles basically, many of them took a U-turn and they came back, okay, in the same direction. So then they realized that this charged particle, alpha particles, are getting scattered from a condensed, positively charged nucleus. And Rutherford backscattering happens in the electron microscopy also. I don't think gamma rays or any electromagnetic Rutherford's theory, you don't apply there to the photons. It is not applied to the photons actually. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. But good question actually. तुम क्वेश्चन करते हो तो बाकी लोगों का भी कुछ कुछ आंसर हो जाता है. और कोई क्वेश्चन? Anybody else? Or only Anand is asking questions? Anchal,
hello, sir.
Yeah, another Anchal and Anand, they are two A's. They are only asking questions.
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, in the line you have written that accelerated charge
तुम लोग
particles.
क्या BHU के स्टूडेंट हो? कहाँ के हो? तुम लोग बहुत
मैं
अच्छे
sir,
क्वेश्चन पूछते हो.
no, sir, I am from MNIT. I did my MSc from University of Allahabad.
इलाहाबाद के स्टूडेंट हो यार. इलाहाबाद से मुझे बहुत इनविटेशन आया है. पहले यादव थे ना फिजिक्स में, वो वाइस चांसलर बन गए.
Okay.
अब तो रिटायर हो गए ना. सुन के आया था. हाँ, तो
Sir,
मैं
yeah.
बहुत इनविटेशन आया इलाहाबाद से, पर मैं कभी नहीं जा पाया. मैं मतलब मुझे बुखार आ जाता था, गला खराब हो जाता था. वो वाइस चांसलर बन के उनका फोन आता रहता है. कोई डॉक्टर प्रोफेसर यादव थे.
Rajaram Yadav, sir. Professor Rajaram Yadav.
हाँ, जानते हो उनको? हाँ.
Yes, sir.
हाँ. तो
Sir, ये
ऑफिस में
question
आते
है.
रहते हैं.
Sir, in the line you have written that accelerated electric charge radiates electromagnetic energy in all direction. Sir, in our classes during my MSc, we have been taught that the charged particle, when accelerates, it only radiates electromagnetic radiation in its perpendicular, or never radiates radiation in its plane. It always radiates in plane perpendicular or something else. Never radiates radiation.
No, don't your MSc books, sometimes there is a lot of problems actually. Okay, whatever is written here is final actually. That's why I tell the student that I am here to you have to unlearn some of the things which you learned in past, and you have to learn fresh.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. I tell my student you have to unlearn actually. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Because previous knowledge sometimes becomes a roadblock in new understanding. So no problem. We have all these problems. All of us, we have this problem. So that's the reason you can see this rainbow formation and secondary rainbow. This is all due to this radiation in all the direction. When I say all direction, basically there is a cos square theta term. I think all of you know cos square theta term in the Rayleigh scattering formula. Rayleigh scattering is basically proportional to d to the power 6 and inversely proportional to lambda square, I think, lambda square or lambda to the power 4. I don't remember.
Lambda to the power 4, sir.
Power 4, yeah. And d is basically the dimension of the scatterer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And cos square theta. So you can see that this basically gives you a kind of basically dispersion of light, something like this around the scatterer. Yeah, cos square theta. Okay, so it is not symmetric, but the cos square theta term is there. It's not see, it is not written that in symmetrically in all direction. It's not written. Okay, but it radiates in all the directions. Okay. So yes, if you consider Mie scattering from larger particles, so then there is a lot of forward scattering. Please note that for larger particles, when we consider Mie scattering is largely forward scattering. That does not mean that electromagnetic scattering will not happen in other direction, but most of the flux is in the forward direction. Okay, when the beam is coming like this, and then Tyndall scattering is different for even larger particles. Okay, so it's complex. I'm not going to go into that detail because it's not related to. But I'm going to tell you this is there in the advance in the same presentation which I'm showing. But I've had to stop at certain point and return back to ellipse symmetry. Okay, so then secondary radiation is called the radiation scattered by the obstacle. Now, here we are considering obstacle as an atom, but what about collection of atoms? I will leave you at that theory when we consider the collection of atoms, because that is related to the ellipse symmetry. So scattering is finally excitation. Okay, excitation because the energy which is used in the exciting the electrons, and then re-radiation, dipolar that dipole basically re-radiate. In addition to the re-radiating electromagnetic energy, the excited elementary charge may transform. All of you know this thing, that the energy can be lost in non-radiative processes. We call it this. We call this as K, and we probe this in ellipse symmetry. This is where the K comes from. Okay, and this is where basically this is the origin of N, when the light, which electromagnetic wave, when it basically tries to move this electron cloud here and there, and see, if electron is tightly bound with the nucleus, then okay, then it will require, I'm just using a very layman term, it will require effort for this electromagnetic wave to sway this electron around the nucleus. So what it means that polarizability plays a major role. How strong, what is the polarizability? How easily you can polarize the molecule or the atom or single atom. How easily you can polarize actually. So it is the deepest science actually, and that is basically that decides your N of the medium. So N is directly connected to the how easily you can polarize the atom, because that's only when you can basically separate or basically you can polarize this atom actually. Okay, so that's the please note that. So that makes some materials refractive index different than other. This is one of the reason actually that refractive index of the material is also dependent upon Anand on the surrounding environment. Okay, N is dependent on the surrounding environment because materials polarizability will be like the polarizability of atom will depend upon the surrounding Coulombian interaction, surrounding electric field, surrounding magnetic field. Okay, so the bonding surrounding पड़ोस में कौन सा एटम बैठा है उससे भी इसका इन्फ्लुएंस होगा. क्रिस्टलिनिटी क्या है, ओके, क्रिस्टल फील्ड क्या है, सब कुछ उसी सबसे वो चीजें इन्फ्लुएंस होती चली जाएंगी. समझ में आ गया? I think you are all understanding this point. So
yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, this is a very, very fundamental and it's a very, very profound statement. Okay. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah, and it is you can use this in many if you are using dielectric spectroscopy, many of you use this for energy science. Okay, you are using this dielectric absorption and impedance spectroscopy and Raman. Everywhere you can apply this physics. Physics remains the same. Yeah, if you are doing light scattering, DLS, you are using X-ray diffraction. X-ray diffraction में सेम चीज काम आती है, सेम चीज, कुछ चेंज नहीं होता है. ओके, सेम चीज आप अप्लाई कर सकते हो. तो इसका बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट है इस फिजिक्स का. प्लीज नोट दैट. ये दो स्लाइड आपकी पूरी जिंदगी चेंज कर देंगी अगर ये समझ में आ गया तो. फिर आप क्या कर सकते हो अगर ये समझ में आ गया, सो यू कैन see, any matter is just addition of atoms. So you can just think about any matter as a collection of these atoms. Once you understand the interaction of light with the matter. So as I have explained it here, now you can take larger obstacle. Now larger obstacle, basically you have incident light. This figure I have taken from the same book. This is actually the first figure of that book. And it will take you lifetime to, I mean, not lifetime, but it will take you a lot of time to understand this single figure actually. I mean, if you understand this from on basis of this previous slide. So now you can think about scattering, but I will break this obstacle into small parts very soon. Wait for. So scattering is by fluctuation and by particles. Let's understand. So vacuum, everything except vacuum is heterogeneous in some sense. In fact, there is in pure physicists, they know that there is nothing in the universe you can call it as a perfect vacuum. There is nothing vacuum as such vacuum actually. Everything has some particles in it. Okay, but everything except a perfect vacuum, okay, is heterogeneous in some sense. Okay, even in media that we usually consider to be heterogeneous, pure gases, liquid or solid, it is possible to distinguish individual heterogeneity with a fine probe. Okay. Now, therefore, all media, what is the consequence of this? This reason that all media will scatter light. You can detect it or you don't detect it. It does not. It's another point. But any media, we are just think this thing in terms of ellipsometry. Okay, is applied. So basically, every media will change in the media will scatter light. Okay, because there will be some particles, some scattering centers will be there. Some. It depends upon what is their concentration. That is different thing. So many phenomena that are not usually referred to as scattering phenomena, ultimately, please note that this is life-changing slide for all of you. Please note that all these things are scattering. For example, diffuse reflection from the rough surfaces. This is also scattering. Diffraction is also scattering from the slits, grating, edges, all kinds of, even the electron diffraction, specular refraction from the polished surfaces, and refraction. They are all part of this same thing what we learned. इसी से सब निकल के आया है, उससे अलग कुछ भी नहीं है. लोग पढ़ाते अलग अलग हैं और उनको बिल्कुल नहीं सिखाया जाता. एमएससी तक बच्चों को कुछ भी नहीं बताया जाता कि रिफ्लेक्शन क्यों हो रहा है, रिफ्रैक्शन क्यों हो रहा है. बोलते हैं स्नेल्स लॉ जाके पढ़ लो और फ्रेंड्स इक्वेशन वहां लगा लो, आ जाएगा, एंगल आ जाएगा, आपकी इंटेंसिटी आ जाएगी.
Yes sir, this is the thing, we do not understand means properly.
कोई बताएगा आपको, कोई ऑप्टिक्स की बुक उठा के देख लो, आपको कहीं नहीं मिलेगा ये चीज.
Sir, there are different chapters for different topics.
I know, but वो फिजिक्स नहीं बताते, वो मैथमेटिक्स बताते हैं सब. They will teach mathematics. There will be plenty of equations which you will forget. And yeah, what you remember is actually the physics. You forget the mathematics is easy to forget. I always say that. And students should not be taught mathematical formula because they will, and they should not be harassed. Oh, you don't remember this formula. There is a culture in our country that we start harassing students. We test their memory rather than conceptual understanding. I went to college, and first day in my college, one professor in my BSc part 1, mathematics professor, he was very renowned professor, very, से सब घबराते थे. उसने मुझे बेंच पे खड़ा कर दिया कि पंकज पोदार कौन है. मैं खड़ा हो गया डरते डरते, बट BSc part 1 कि हमने तुम्हारे बारे में बहुत सुना है. That was first day in the college. तुमने बोर्ड टॉप किया है, ये है वो है, और तुम्हें कितने फॉर्मूले रटे हुए हैं. मैं डर गया. फिर उन्होंने कहा मुझे पंकज पता है मुझे 10,000 15,000 फॉर्मूले रटे हुए हैं. तो मैं डर गया और ज्यादा. तो टीचिंग ये नहीं होनी चाहिए कि तुम्हें कितना फॉर्मूला याद है, मुझे कितना. इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू मेक एनी डिफरेंस. ये सब भूल जाते हैं. मैं भूल गया, मुझे कोई फॉर्मूला याद नहीं है. पूछो E=mc² मुश्किल से याद रहता है मुझे, है ना.
Sir, physics is not a mathematical formula, it's a concept.
इट्स अ कॉन्सेप्ट एक्चुअली. हम लोग पढ़ाते समय वो बिल्कुल भूल जाते हैं, और हम लोग उसको मैथमेटिक्स इज बेसिकली, मैथमेटिक्स में हम कह देते हैं कि ये देखो ये डिनोमिनेटर बढ़ रहा है इसलिए ये बढ़ेगा. न्यूमरेटर घट रहा है इसलिए ये घटेगा. अरे यार उसके पीछे क्या साइंस है, व्हाट इज फिजिक्स, वी नेवर टीच एक्चुअली, वी नेवर टीच. So at least you have this, that's why I'm spending more time here. Anyway, coming back to the yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Shefali is my old student actually.
Sir, in case of gold nanoparticles or especially gold nanostructures, first I'll talk about gold nanoparticles. We see when we synthesize gold nanoparticles, is generally we see the color as pinkish red. So that is a scattered light, and when we take the absorbance, we get the SPR peak around.
Wait. I'll make your concepts clear. I know what you are. Okay. So this was okay. I think you see this famous wine cup with the colloidal gold, right? Picture. So if
Yes.
you see, if you put light inside, okay, and if you put light outside, and then you see it from outside, then you will see it as a red color, right? Okay. So basically what happens that you can do this experiment. You can take a cardboard box and you put your vial of colloidal gold inside, and then you have light source here. यहाँ पे एक छेद कर दिया, यहाँ छेद कर दिया cardboard box में, यहाँ छेद कर दिया. तो यहाँ से जब लाइट पास करोगे और यहाँ से देखोगे तो आपको लाल दिखाई देगा. यहाँ से 90 डिग्री पे देखोगे तो आपको हरा दिखाई देगा. हरा दिखाई देगा, यहाँ पे लाल दिखाई देगा. ठीक है?
Okay.
ये कार्डबोर्ड बॉक्स है. क्यों दिखाई देगा? आपको यहाँ पर रिमेनिंग लाइट दिखाई दे रही है. So basically light, this colloidal gold nanoparticle around 20 nanometer in dimension, spherical gold we are talking about here, and that will basically absorb based on its plasmon resonance, and that is basically resonance I will teach today. So that will basically resonance happens around 120 nanometer roughly.
Yes,
So
sir.
then it re-radiates the same light. So it will absorb around this. So what you see is the remaining light. Okay, लाल रंग का वो दिखाई देगा. सफेद में से हरा निकाल दोगे, लाल बच के आता है. पर ये तो एब्जॉर्ब तो करता नहीं रहेगा, ये इसको वापस फेंकने लगता है. और वापस
Okay.
फेंकेगा तो सभी डायरेक्शन में फेंकेगा ना, यहाँ
हाँ.
भी फेंकेगा.
Hmm.
तो यहाँ पे
Okay.
यहाँ से देखोगे तो आपको शेफाली आपको हरा रंग दिखाई देगा, आपको वो बोतल हरी दिखाई देगी. यहाँ से देखोगे तो आपको वो बोतल लाल दिखाई देगी आपको.
So, sir, you're telling that when we are seeing in a straight direction, we will see red color.
Yes.
Because after absorption, the remaining color out of the light that comes to our eyes is red in color.
Yes, but you will see some, here you will see some, green color photons also entering, but that will, this will dominate the green, because green is getting scattered back, ready in all the direction. So it should exit here also. But
Okay.
dominantly it will be red. Dominantly,
Okay,
because
sir,
that is gold.
just one thing. Generally, when we take in UV visible spectrophotometer, where absorbance we take by placing the two optical probes in a straight line.
Okay, let
And-
me tell you something. I was teaching my students, my group actually, my co-workers, my friends here, last week. What do you measure in UV visible absorption? You never measure absorption. Does it surprises you? See,
Yeah.
absorption means you are basically it is an extension. I would say that it is an extension that light did not reach to the detector. So you let me anyway. Yes, एक minute मैं just complete करने दो. You have basically you are shining. So for example, you take some medium and you are shining basically like 1,000 photons. Okay, it is related actually what Shefali is asking, and what you are measuring in the detector is basically suppose 900 photons you are detecting, but for particular lambda. So you consider that these 100 photons are absorbed by your material, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how are you sure? They may be scattered in another direction. They may not be absorbed actually.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? Actually, there's a
Yes,
difference
sir.
between.
Yes.
You're assuming that they are absorbed.
Okay.
Absorb, when I say absorb, means photons are completely lost and they are not given back. Okay. And maybe they are non-radiating, or if they are given back, but then they will be scattered. When they are given back, then when they are thrown back in all the directions.
Mm.
Out of that, then, for example, 100 photons are lost here, they are absorbed, but out of that, those 100 photons will be thrown, probably 90 photons will be thrown back. Out of that, probably 5 photons are also entering here, plus 5. So you have to consider these concepts in, शांति से अकेले में बैठ के शिफाली जो मैंने बताया ना उसके बारे में सोचना, तो बिना कंप्यूटर के, बिना मोबाइल के, you will understand what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
थोड़ा सा अलग बैठ करके इसको एक्सपेरिमेंट को अलग ढंग से सोचना, जो टीचर्स ने बताया, अपने लॉजिक से सोचना कि एब्जॉर्प्शन में होता क्या है, एक्चुअली क्या क्या चीजें पॉसिबल हैं. And it is not exactly, we use it in a layman term, that absorption spectroscopy, but we should know exactly how the light is in fact interacting with the matter actually. Yeah. Any other, somebody else?
सर एक और था क्वेश्चन कि जनरली अगर हम लोग अगर गोल्ड नैनो पार्टिकल से नैनो रॉड में चले जाए, इंक्रीज चेंज द डायमेंशन, तो सर वी सी अ प्रोमिनेंट अब्जॉर्प्शन, वी कैन से एक्सटेंशन इन द NIR region.
Yes.
So sir, that is that part we generally call is mainly due to scattering of electrons.
Yes.
तो सर मैं सर लेकिन वो भी तो एक मतलब सेम
मेथड. Shefali, okay, let me tell you. So you consider two springs. Okay, there are two springs. One is this shorter spring, and another is longer spring. Okay, so your gold nanorod has one spring. For example, I'm not very good in a. Okay, it has one spring like this, and another spring like this. So okay, transverse and longitudinal, right? So now electrons, free electrons in your gold nanorods can be oscillated like this. They can move like this, right? And they can move like this also.
Yes, sir.
And what is preventing them from this oscillation? The positive charge. They're basically there is always a restoring force which is applied by leftover positive charges. भाई यहाँ से इधर खींचोगे तो ये यहाँ positive charge ज्यादा हो जाएगा इस direction में, तो इसको वो उसको खींचेगा, तो basically it becomes like a harmonic oscillator, right? The electron oscillation, collective oscillation, I am talking about actually, because gold, in the gold we are talking about collection of gold atoms, billions of atoms. So we are talking like a collective oscillations here, because we are actually talking here about single atoms, single molecules. So, but Shefali's question is for the larger objects, even nanoparticles I call as larger objects. So resonance frequency of this oscillation will be higher than this, right? Because this distance is smaller.
Yeah.
So this electron absorption, which is happening because of resonance here, will be absorbed at a lower wavelength. Suppose it's wavelength. Got it? In nanometer. And this length will be absorbing here. Now, what is the reason that it is so broad? Now, broadness is because of the many reasons. One is basically your inhomogeneity of this dimension, dispersion. Basically, some rod may be like this, some rod another may be a little bit longer, some may be shorter. So one of the reason is this. Another reason is basically your phonon contribution. Okay, I told you that we are considering these atoms as stationary, but they are moving. Okay, so that basically contributes to this broadening. And second contribution to the broadening is the effect of refractive index of the surrounding media around the gold nanorods. Suppose you might be having some solvent, some surfactant, so that leads to this kind of a broadening. Got it?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Somebody else was asking some question.
No, sir, I was asking, but it got answered while you answered Shefali's question. It was about you answered about, when you answered about that gold nanoparticles in the box and the red and green part. So yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So another I would like to add to Shefali's, because that answer is I'm feeling guilty, because there is another shape which will help your understanding, which will make your understanding final, because otherwise Shefali's question. So suppose you have a triangle. Suppose you have basically one shorter dimension and two longer dimension. If you see this one is shorter dimension, which is the thickness, and there are two or three longer dimension. So if you have a triangle or so, then this contributes to NIR broadening even more. Actually, NIR keeps on broadening here. Okay. Yeah, it's my favorite topic, and I can teach it for days and days. But anyway, this is not the. I mean, okay. So here we are talking about so specular reflection, refraction. Everything is basically governed by these two slides. What you saw actually earlier, this slide and this slide. Okay, so now let us dig a bit more deeper if you're ready. Origin of specular reflection and refraction at optically smooth surfaces. This is quite related to ellipsometry, and how we are being fooled by some empirical law. Please note that Snell's law is highly inaccurate. This is first order interaction of light. I mean, it does not even consider the there are a lot of other things, that nonlinear optics and other things. So it is basically for bacha log, thoda sa theek hai, 12वीं class tak ke liye theek hai, but it is highly empirical one. And it was given long time back by a mathematician, where understanding of physics and fundamental, there was nobody knew what is photon, quantum mechanics was not there. So please forgive this brilliant scientist who actually gave us this bright formula, but we should know the limitations actually. So please note that the time it was given and how the science advanced at that time. There was no knowledge about quantum mechanics and light and all kinds of things about. There was no understanding about the atomic structure, what is inside the atom. So you have to take it with that spirit actually. Okay, कि भाई उस जमाने में हमें कुछ नहीं पता था रिफ्लेक्शन का, तो ये दे दिया तो बहुत बड़ी मेहरबानी है हमारे लिए, हमारे काम आता है वो Snell's law. So this law can be mathematically derived. If you want to get lost into mathematics, you can derive it back and forth. Maxwell's equation laga do, ye kar do, wo kar do. I'm not interested in all that actually. Okay, you can then get the Fresnel's equation back and forth. I mean, I think you till MSc classes you might have seen enough of this juggling around of the equations, and that does not really help you much actually. This is just jugglery of equations actually. It does not really help. You have seen it enough on the blackboards till the MSc classes. But so it's also possible, although far from easy, to derive these equations explicitly considering the molecular. Now, this is basically what is the need of the hour. Can you derive these equations from the atomic picture actually, if you take collection of atoms? Because now we know the understanding. For example, this X-ray diffraction theory, we can safely derive it from the atomic form factor and scattering structure factor, right? So when we look at the peak intensities on X-ray diffraction, we know that what we know is atomic form factor for X-rays, and we multiply it by the structure factor, how the atoms are arranged in three-dimensional lattice. So now we have an understanding, and then we can safely calculate the intensities, and we have a shape factor and other things and other more chota mota cheez after that. But primarily these are three features. And then, for example, another thing is basically your orientation effects, how the particles are, anisotropic particles are lying when you prepare the sample. So, but primarily these things covered. So can we do the same thing for theory of scattering? Of course we can do that, but it is complicated. So that's why people still stick to the Fresnel's equation and Snell's equation, because that makes our life easy, but that does not teach us any physics. So transparent medium on which light is incident is an aggregation of many small molecules. So afternoon class, please remember this. Now we are talking from atom to bulk. Okay. So larger objects. So the field in the neighborhood, and another thing actually, please note that field in the neighborhood of a given molecule, I told you already, सराउंडिंग एनवायरनमेंट का इन्फ्लुएंस का यहाँ से थ्योरी आ रहा है निकल के कि भाई किस चीज से डिपेंड करता है. अभी शेफाली ने भी क्वेश्चन वही पूछा. Okay, so given molecule induces a oscillating dipole moment in the molecule, find it in turns give rise to secondary dipole radiation. So basically, suppose molecule become also a source. So each molecule, suppose you take a solid and each atom or molecule, whatever it is, this also becomes a source. So it is also radiating light, or this light is electromagnetic radiation is also getting absorbed by another neighboring atom, another neighboring molecule. So please, if for air it is not that serious, for liquids it's fine, but for solids it becomes very serious, multiple scattering and okay, and that has to be considered, and that is basically it all considered basically surrounding, these oscillators in, atoms are basically like oscillators. So these oscillators can couple. So many oscillators which are in the neighborhood, they can couple these. So this oscillating cloud can start overlapping depending upon the, okay. So then this can be like a collective oscillation, and then this resonance can happen. Like Shefali gave this example of gold nanoparticles. It can happen in dielectrics. I will teach you. It can happen in semiconductors, but at particular resonance frequency, this can happen when it's simultaneously they are moving, like soldiers marching, in a tandem actually simultaneously. So please note this also, that so each molecule is acted not only by the incident light, please note that, but also the resultant of the secondary field from other molecules. Please, this. So when you consider collection of atoms, earlier we were considering single atom, but now we are considering collection of atoms. So you have to consider secondary radiation also, like wavelets. We call in actually geometric optics, we call it like a wavelet. Okay, हम लोग wavelet से करके घुमा देते हैं हमें, यहाँ पे ये हो गया, ये कंस्ट्रक्टिव होगा, ओके, यहाँ पे डिस्ट्रक्टिव होगा, जो भी है destructive interference and constructive, you get these peaks, different peaks. But here you are learning something very deep actually. So therefore the electromagnetic many body, it's basically many body problem, and molecules are coupled. Whether you are applying this theory in X-ray diffraction or Raman or your UV visible absorption or your FTIR or your luminescence, photoluminescence, or you're applying in light scattering, you're applying in ellipsometry, everywhere you can apply this, everywhere, wherever you have electromagnetic radiation, wherever, without any problem. So next result of the solution to this problem is that subject to, do you want me to continue with this or return to the ellipsometry slides? Anybody?
Sir, please continue.
Are you enjoying this?
Yes, sir.
There is a lot of text, so, because these are just notes. That's not my formal.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Okay. I can easily, take a shortcut and teach you ellipsometry. It will take me less time and less effort, but it won't help you actually. Okay. So anyway, आज का torture है, 2-3 दिन का झेल लो. So next solution. So okay. So is that inside the medium, the secondary waves superpose. This is another very important concept. Superpose on each other, and you can apply it everywhere. All these techniques. Please, we learn it actually as a wavelets in theory of these young slates and other things. Okay, it's the same thing actually. Secondary waves superimpose on each other and on the incident wave to just give a refracted wave of propagation velocity. अब यहाँ से आ गया refracted wave आ गया ना यहाँ पे. So basically these are secondary waves which are going into certain direction. Okay, so these are actually so in all other direction these waves will extinguish completely extinguish inside the medium, but except one direction, these wavelets. So primary beam as well as secondary beam, this consists of this actually, or refraction also, reflection and refraction. Okay, so it's basically it is all scattering actually. Outside the medium, secondary waves superpose to give specularly reflected wave. So now you understand reflection and refraction. Okay. And refractive index depends on the number of molecule per unit volume and polarizability of a single molecule. Okay, together it decides the optical density, what we call it like optical density. Actually, it is basically polarizability. I explained you how strongly, because electron see, electromagnetic beam is trying to dislodge the electrons around the nucleus from its position, right? Okay, so they are trying to basically, their electrons are happily orbiting, but when electric field vector comes and it tries to move, okay, chalo bhai mere saath jhulo, idhar chalo. So basically अगर वो मजबूती से अपने न्यूक्लियस के साथ अपनी ऑर्बिट में बोलेगा नहीं मुझे नहीं जाना है इधर उधर, तो it depends upon how easily you can polarize it. So that decides basically the slowness of the wave. So basically, so this oscillation slows this down. That's why this velocity of light becomes slower and slower in high refractive index medium or highly polarizable medium. Basically, when you can polarize, so this wave starts slowing down. Now this will not be taught to you in your MSc books. People will tell you that, oh, wave slows down, electromagnetic wave slows down in optically dense materials, wherever you have high refractive index material. But why does it slows down? What is the reason behind, what is the physics behind this slowdown? And it does not happen in electron microscopy. When electron, please note that when accelerating electron moves inside the matter, same matter, it speeds up. So suppose electron is coming from a 300 kilo electron volt source, and with the velocity of 0.6 times speed of light, which is actually the velocity around this in electron microscope. And when it enters into a solid, the velocity will increase, it will speed up because of the Coulombian interaction. Opposite thing happen actually in case of charged particle, electrons. But here we are considering that the effect is opposite, and the wave basically slows down actually. And why does it slow down? You know that because of the polarizability of molecules and their density, actually, how dense they are. So that's the reason that air for gases refractive index is smaller, and for liquids next, and then for solids even it is next. And among solids, metals have usually highest refractive index. Next come semiconductors, next come dielectrics. So among solids, metals have highest refractive index. What is the reason? That you have here readily available free electrons. So they can, you don't need polarizability. You know, they are ready. Arey bhai, aa jao, hum log chalne ke liye tayar hai tumhare saath. Free electrons. We are ready to move with you. Aa jao. Okay. So then they are readily available. You don't need to put any extra effort. Electromagnetic wave. Next comes semiconductor, because semiconductors have some band gap which can be achieved. You know, you can just by applying some energy. So you have plenty of free electrons. You can once you go above this critical energy. Dielectrics, it's difficult. Dielectrics bolenge, I'm not I don't want to give you that many electrons unless you match my my resonance frequency. There you are talking about dipoles, actually dipoles. So dipoles, these are not interested. That's the reason I told you yesterday that glasses are transparent in the visible, but they absorb in IR. That is a different physics. That physics is because they're bending and stretching and all those things. That's the molecular vibrations actually. That is not like electronic transition. That's not because of electronic transition, right? So dielectrics, they are not interested. That's why it is very difficult to increase the refractive index of borosilicate glass BK7 beyond 1.7. You know that. It's not that easy. Even in fact, these polymers, most of these polymers, General Electric and these all these companies, Carl Zeiss, who make these contact lenses, they will pay you a lot of money if you can increase the refractive index of this transparent dielectric medium. For example, glass, borosilicate glass, or these polymers, polystyrene, whatever, PMMA, and all these things, slightly, but it's not easy. Please believe me, dielectric constant का refractive index बढ़ाना इतना आसान नहीं है. Metals का no problem. Metals have got very high. Now you know the underlying physics. Is there any question on this? It is very, very important concepts which are coming out of these slides.
Sir, once repeat, please. In case of glass.
In case of glass, see, you can separate the solids collection of atoms into three broad categories: semiconductors, and dielectrics. So in dielectrics, you don't have free electrons available. So that is the reason that it is not easy to polarize those dipoles in certain direction actually, because you can do that, but it's not as easy as in metals. You have free electrons available. That's the reason that refractive index of metals is largest, more than semiconductors, and semiconductors are more than dielectrics. Is it clear? Because you have here free electrons.
Actually, sir, I'm talking about the glass means transmit the light, but it absorbs the IR radiation.
In visible, they are not interested in visible light. Or if they're interested, they're interested. They will absorb the atoms which are present in dielectrics. Like for example, let us look at glass as silicon oxide, amorphous silicon oxide. Okay, I mean we can take simpler glass as amorphous glassy silicon oxide. So now you have basically silicon oxygen bonds actually, right? Something like that. I mean whatever, silicon whatever. So now silicon atom and oxygen atom, the electrons which are present in the silicon atom and oxygen atom, they will interact with the incoming radiation, right? They will absorb slightly and they will re-radiate, but there will not be a collective oscillation. You understand? Collectiveness will not happen. Resonance will not happen because silicon का अपना खुद का अपना वो है local absorption होगा. Okay, oxygen का अलग है, but as a entire lattice, resonance will not happen in the visible. You got my point? And absorption happens when there is a resonance actually, maximum energy transfer. Then
Yes.
K remains 0 for visible. But IR has a different story. IR basically, in IR what happens actually, now you can ask me why IR is so special. IR basically different things happen because these bond energy start matching. So basically this electron cloud starts basically oscillating between silicon or silicon oxygen, or between silicon, bending and stretching. Okay. So
Yeah.
that can happen. For example, water can rotate inside a microwave, right? But water is transparent in water will not absorb the water will not absorb the visible light. See, water is transparent to the visible light, but water absorbs IR. It heats up in microwave. It heats up, right? Water molecule will absorb microwave. That's why you heat the food. You understand?
Yes, sir. Yes.
You shine light through water, it will not absorb. Okay, so there is a collectiveness which happens. So absorption happens when all these molecules, they collectively participate actually. There is a resonance actually. But here water molecule, I mean, it does not mean that visible light will not talk to the, but it will re-emit. It will not like, it will re-emit actually those radiation. There is a, I think we understood actually here. There is something called extinction. There are two concepts actually here. What is this? You excite, and then some of it is being re-radiated, but some of this is getting lost, which is actually called absorption, which forms basically the K. Okay, so we have to understand that way. Anyway, so let us move ahead. Yeah. So now you have a theory of why there is a reflection and refraction. Another concept which I would like to tell is a lot of myth associated with the total internal reflection. You might have heard about this. Total internal reflection, right? It is there into ellipsometry also. We call it TIRE. TIRE. Total internal reflection ellipsometry. You can make it easily in your own lab. If you buy a lens, a prism, you can do that. You can do ellipsometry here on top of the prism. Actually, he makes the refractive index in such a way. You can do that. Slide, you have to put some slide. So anyway, so when the light is basically total interrefraction happens when the light is basically moving from high refractive index to low refractive index. Now you might be wondering that means 100% light is reflected, right, in this direction. Now, by this atomic insight, do you really think that it is possible that 100% light is reflected? Now you know that reflection is all bakwas. It's all re-radiated light by a bunch of atoms and molecules. In true physics, it's not possible. It defies the quantum mechanics actually. So some light will always enter into another medium. We call it, you know, that it's very useful light. We call it evanescent wave. You might have heard about it. And it is very useful in, you call it like this, you do this FTIR into this total interrefraction, FTIR. So you can do SPR, you can do, there are so many basically instruments built around this. So basically it's called light leaking into another medium. It's called vanishing light actually. It's like this light basically decays, it fastly decays exponentially in another medium, this medium, within let's say 10 nanometer. Again, it is related to the wavelength of the light, but I think it is it decays very, very fast. But this, because of the principle that it decays very fast, so so that basically defies the usual Rayleigh diffraction limit, which is limited by λ/2. So basically, you can put some molecule around this 10 nanometer volume, and this light will be able to probe only the molecules which are around this 10 nanometer volume. That means you have artificially increased the resolution of light, which is usually, for example, for 500 nanometer light, the resolution is at the best 250 nanometer. But now you have stretched it back. So this is called near field optics. I think you might have heard about near field and far field optics. So in ellipsometry, you can do near field and far field optics. So please remember that there is nothing as such near, total internal reflection. It's not possible. We use this term all the time, but you should know that what is the truth about this. There is always, so the boundary conditions are not fulfilled in quantum mechanics if you consider this, and there is always a light which leaks out into another medium. Is it useful, this concept about? I think many people know about total interreflection. It is getting more and more famous because of nanoscience, because you can probe nanoscopic objects using ordinary light, using this technique. And nowadays, this ellipsometry companies, nowadays they have started selling this cell. At one time they were not selling, so I was making my own TIRE cell. Okay, so I think you might have heard about tip enhanced Raman effect. There are many related concepts actually here. So the tip enhanced Raman effect is also around this evanescent wave, actually total interreflection, and there you can confine the light and you can probe very small volumes. Any question around this? Is it was it useful, or it was way off to you guys?
Sir, actually I have a question, like what information do we get from the evanescent wave if we capture that, or if we monitor that light?
See, evanescent wave you can use to excite that molecule. You can do the same absorption and luminescence spectroscopy. Same thing. Here your probe volume becomes very small. You're exciting only locally, so it is basically locally exciting. See, when you prepare your material for UV visible absorption spectroscopy, so for example, you can do single molecule spectroscopy, as simple as that. Are you happy now with this statement?
Okay.
Or few molecules, because you can excite locally only few molecules.
Okay. Okay.
समझ में आ गया ना भाई? यहाँ पर अगर यहाँ पर बहुत सारे मॉलिक्यूल्स आपको एक्साइट कर रहे हो ना बास लेवल पे, आप चाहे माइक्रो प्रोब यूज कर लो, फोकसिंग प्रोब यूज कर लो, भाई फोकसिंग प्रोब का भी एक लिमिट है ना ऑप्टिक्स में, λ/2, यू कैन नॉट बीट द डिफ्रैक्शन लिमिट। कल वो क्वेश्चन आया था ना किसी लड़की का कि भाई आप फोकसिंग प्रोब क्यों नहीं यूज कर रहे हो, उसका क्या यूज है। भाई मैंने कहा कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी बढ़ जाती है, मोर एंड मोर ऑप्टिक्स यू इन्वॉल्व, यू आर मेकिंग लाइट पाथ मोर एंड मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स। इफ यू डोंट नीड, हाउ व्हाई डू यू पुट इट, why do you want to put more and more optical elements? Because I want to keep the light path very simple. I don't want to put extra things there because then my calculation becomes complicated. So I don't use focusing probes. But now question comes that how basically what is the smallest area you can focus the light on? Answer is by Rayleigh criteria, λ/2. You cannot focus. That's the limit of optical microscopy, right?
Okay.
Right. So
Okay,
that means it is impossible to shine light on one molecule. You cannot probe one molecule, one specific area. But that is, this all science is called far field. It is not true in near field. So I'm telling you, I give you concept about near field optics. So Shefali, what I was telling you, if you use evanescent waves, you are basically reaching the limit. You are entering into the evanescent wave area.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
तो वो इसको बहुत जगह यूज करते हैं, सर्स में, SER, सरफेस एनहांस्ड रामन स्कैटरिंग में, इनमें बहुत जगह ये सब यूज होता है आजकल, बहुत ज्यादा AFM में यूज होता है ये सब कुछ। अगर AFM यूज कर रहे हो बायोलॉजी वाले लोग, इट्स हाईली अप्लाइड these days, this concept. So in ellipsometry also you can integrate this method, and this becomes TIRE, okay, total internal reflection ellipsometry, if you use evanescent waves. Any other question? Anybody else? दो तीन लोग ही क्वेश्चन पूछ रहे हैं भाई। अंजना?
Sir, today all these concepts, I mean, physics at this level is very new for me. I'm just trying to absorb the new concepts. But yes, this was totally new for me. The way you have said that. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but scattering is an overarching term for all the phenomena that we will.
Yes, Asim, you are right. Yes, you are right. You made a exact. You summarized the statement actually.
And it's not only about visible light, it will be applicable for XRD as well, or any
everywhere,
other,
starting from gamma rays to your mobile telephony.
Okay,
mobile network to all these, everything. So,
any kind of wave matter interaction,
any kind of wave matter interaction, any kind of, you can apply the same science everywhere.
Hello, sir.
Even for your mobile phone like 3G, 4G, 5G, you can apply the same science. In fact, all your mobile network works on the same principle actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So continuing to the point you were discussing, I don't know if this question is relevant to the topic, but sir, in chemistry,
if it is relevant to you, then that's what matter to you.
Yes, sir. So chemiluminescence, then fluorescence, and there are many other luminescence that we get from organic compounds. So even can we consider these luminescence as a scattering light or something?
See, when light get absorbed, some chemistry is happening there, some physics is happening. I mean, that can happen. But then light will talk differently. Everything is physics actually everywhere. So basically, when you talk about chemiluminescence or other bioluminescence, so what is the step? First step is electromagnetic radiation is talking to your matter. Matter is a biological matter or it is chemical matter. You can name it as a biological. It has some biological function. It has some chemistry function. For me, everything is some element of periodic table. I really don't care. In fact, I don't care about different elements also. For me, different atoms are also collection of some number of electrons, some number of protons, some number of neutrons. I told you to go beyond biology, chemistry, everything, See, what you call it, biology is some biological function. So when this electromagnetic radiation is absorbed by that collection of the atoms, which you call as a biological material, and bioluminescence is basically some kind of a charge interaction takes place, some charge transfer or this or that, and then some light will come Stokes shifted or anti-Stokes shifted, right? That you call it as a bioluminescence or chemical luminescence, right? These are subsequent interactions actually, right? Yeah. So of course it is not, Stokes shifted light is not part of this this course, because we don't discuss Stokes shifting or anti-Stokes. We discuss about Rayleigh's, elastic scattering only here. But you can always ask questions. Actually, I love questions. Anybody else? But Pooja, it was good question. Yeah. Sayan Karmakar.
Yes, sir, even I have the same question because I'm from chemistry, so fluorescence and phosphorescence.
See, I gave you enough weapons. You can apply weapon anyway. I give you fundamental weapons actually.
Yes, sir, that's what.
After that, you can apply your own logic and assemble the weapon and answer any further question.
True, sir.
See, I give you a route actually. Jada आपको provide कर दिया है. Route conceptual. And see, every question I told you that different questions are manifestation of the same physics. These bioluminescence, chemiluminescence are different manifestations actually, different branches actually of light matter interaction. Anybody else? Suman Dhami, Mohammad Azhar, Hassan.
Question.
Yes, Suman.
So you said that in ellipsometry we studied this near field optics and far field optics. So, sir, can you please explain it again?
See, you need additional. I think, did you understand far field of difference between far field and near field optics? Is it question?
No,
You did not understand. Okay.
No.
See, there are two parts to this question. That one is basically what is near field and what is far field optics. Second part is that far field optics you all deal with in day-to-day life. That is far field. What you can see from your eyes, your experiences of world is actually in far field. You never experience from your eyes the near field world. But we have to understand first the difference between far field and near field. As the name suggests, far field and near field. Far field is basically any optical interactions within of the order of lambda or larger than that. That is called far field distances. Any light matter interaction which you are trying to investigate, around lambda by 10 and larger than that. Near field happens. Near field is basically which happens when you are really away, when the distances are much less than lambda actually. That is near field. Okay, near field actually. So most of the time in optics you study far field interaction. So near field optics was not invented till late. Near field acoustics people knew acoustics, like evanescent waves in acoustics was known to the people, because this you can because the frequency is too low and wavelength is too high, and these are acoustic waves, so you can study them from human perceptions. But near field optics is basically less than 10 nanometer, right? So that to investigate these things, to realize experimentally, it required special instruments like microscopies actually, especially microscopies. And this became important when your probe volume is of that order. For example, chemists are not interested in knowing what is happening to millions of molecules. Sometimes they want to know what is, suppose you put on a substrate a bunch of molecules here, some molecular self-assembly, or some particles, for example, 10 nanometer particle here. So you want to probe molecule by molecule actually, okay, or particle by particle, single particle actually, which is of the order of few nanometers. So how do you do that? So yesterday, those students were discussing about those focusing probe. So focusing probe, suppose it can focus on 50 micron or 100 micron or whatever, but that is too large size. You are not interested, Suman. यू आर नॉट इंटरेस्टेड, यू विल से दैट 50 माइक्रोन में तो बहुत सारी दुनिया आ जाएगी, है ना, बहुत दुनिया आ जाएगी, बहुत सारे पार्टिकल्स आ जाएंगे। मेरा तो मतलब इसमें तो पूरा कबाड़ा हो जाएगा कि मुझे पता नहीं ये पार्टिकल से सिग्नल आ रहा है या ये से आ रहा है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल यू वांट टू डू सिंगल पार्टिकल ल्यूमिनेसेंस। सुमन, डिड यू अंडरस्टैंड कि भाई शेफाली मुझसे पूछ रही थी, वो तो एक कॉलोइडल था ना, एक वायल में थे बहुत सारे मिलियंस ऑफ सैंपल्स थे, समझ में आ गया?
यस सर।
मिलियंस ऑफ पार्टिकल्स हैं इसमें। अब तुम सुमन बोलोगे कि नहीं मेरा पार्टिकल, मुझे मेरा एक स्फेरिकल है, एक मेरा क्वाजी स्फेरिकल व्हाटएवर, एक है रॉड है और मेरा ट्रायंगल है, मुझे सबका अलग अलग चाहिए। और आप जब एब्जॉर्प्शन लेते हो, मैंने कहा ना कि यहाँ पे 2 पीक आती हैं इस तरीके की, एक स्फेरिकल की वजह से आएगी, क्वाजी स्फेरिकल की वजह से, एक में रॉड का, ट्रायंगल्स का, दोनों का कंट्रीब्यूशन आता है। अब सुमन बोलेगी ये मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, मुझे अलग अलग पार्टिकल का अलग अलग करके दिखाओ। अब कैसे करोगे? अब कैसे करोगे? तो इसका करने का तरीका यही है, तुम फिर नियर फील्ड पर जाओ। नियर फील्ड पे आपने पार्टिकल्स यहाँ पे सस्पेंड किए, एक पार्टिकल ऐसा है, एक ऐसा है, एक ऐसा है। when we are talking about dimensions, we are talking about, please note that we are talking about these dimensions are of the order of 10 nanometer suppose. Okay, then there are all kinds of particles which are dilute suspension, right? And now Suman says that I want to do UV visible. Shefali madam, please note, this is related to what the question you asked, that I want to do surface plasmon resonance on this particle, then this particle, then this particle, and then this particle. Okay, and suppose this is 1 nanorod, I want to do in this direction and this direction separately, and I want to use UV visible absorption. I want or photoluminescence or chemiluminescence, whatever, or bioluminescence, whatever you whatever name, you know, everything is luminescence, but and I want to use polarized light also. You keep on demanding, you keep on increasing your requirement, wish list. अब कैसे करोगे? यूवी विजिबल जो स्पेक्ट्रोमीटर लैब में है उसमें कर पाओगे? नहीं कर पाओगे। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, हाउ डू यू डू नैनो IR? यू नो व्हाट इज नैनो IR? नैनो FTIR। FTIR कैसे करते हो आप? KPR की पैलेट में सैंपल लगा लेते हो, उसमें सारा खिचड़ी, सब जितने भी मॉलिक्यूल है सब आपको सिग्नल देंगे कि नहीं देंगे? आपको करना है, मुझे IR इसी पार्टिकल पे ही करना है, मुझे पड़ोसी का सिग्नल नहीं चाहिए, सुमन इसका भी नहीं चाहिए, तो कैसे करोगे? तो इसका एप्लीकेशन ये है कि यू पुट दिस पार्टिकल्स ऑन दिस स्लाइड, ओके, एंड देन यू मूव दिस बीम. For example, you do this in total internal reflection mode. So what happens when you are somewhere here? So total internal reflection, you will be able to excite, because it's very localized signal. So then you will be able to excite only one particle at a time. Okay, so other particle remain unaffected. So application is that you can do single particle IR spectroscopy, single particle luminescence, single particle absorption spectroscopy. You can do it, and this light also can be polarized light. So you can in fact look at these modes separately. So these modes I was telling you, right, these oscillations, you can do these oscillations separately. You can look at it. Suman, does it answer your question? That is
Yes,
called
sir.
near field, है ना? समझ में आ गया?
Yes, sir, I understood. Thank
हाँ,
you.
अभी ये टेक्निक आ रही है आजकल मार्केट में, नैनो IR वगैरह, ये सब तुम अपनी लैब में खुद बना सकते हो एक्चुअली, ये सारा चीज.
Yes, sir.
Basically taking all these spectroscopic methods to the nano dimension and doing it for one molecule or one small particles only, not doing it for collection of particles. उसका जमाना गया कि एक पूरा भर के और क्यूवेट में और सैंपल लोड किया जा रहा है कुछ ml, and then you want to you do absorption spectroscopy. तो उस क्यूवेट में जितना भी है वो सब पाथ लेंथ में, सब जो भी मॉलिक्यूल आ गए वो उसमें जो बीम में सबका सिग्नल आपको दिखने आपको आ रहा है ना? वही होता है ना सुमन?
Yes, sir.
है ना? वो सब कलेक्शन पूरी खिचड़ी आ जाती है उसमें, जो आपकी स्पेक्ट्रा आता है. आपको नहीं चाहिए खिचड़ी, आपको चाहिए कि नहीं मुझे तो एक एक पार्टिकल करना है. तो इसका आंसर यही है. Does it help you? Kefali?
Sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
आपके क्वेश्चन से रिलेटेड है शेफाली जी?
Yes, sir.
महेश, मिस्टर महेश, एनी क्वेश्चन?
Sir,
No, sir.
बस सर एक्चुअली ये कंक्लूड करना था कि लाइक जनरली हम लोग जो अब्जॉर्बेंस लिखते हैं गोल्ड नैनो पार्टिकल्स या गोल्ड नैनो स्ट्रक्चर्स के जब यूवी विजिबल लेते हैं, दैट इज रॉन्ग. वी शुड राइट ऑन द वाई एक्सिस एट extinction.
Extinction is a proper term, and I will recommend you one software you can download, and it gives you proper values, proper terms. Meplot. I think you might have used it if you are in that field. Have you used Meplot?
Meplot, no, sir.
You can simulate actually whatever I taught you today about these absorption spectroscopy, surface plasmon. Actually, I can teach you detail. That is a different topic. It's my favorite topic. I told you. But again, but the basics actually I start from these slides only, because if you don't understand the light interaction, you cannot understand that. But you can download this software Meplot. You just Google it, and there you can actually change the refractive index and surrounding medium and all thickness and shapes. You can simulate the absorption spectra. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And you can actually, there are other softwares also. I mean, we used to use a long time back, but nowadays I don't work on these systems, so I'm not using it. So yeah, I think DTSCAT or some program is there. Somebody might be knowing. Right? Somebody wrote this program. Dipole something, scattering something, discrete dipole approximation, something like that. I forgot the full form, but I think D is for discrete, another D is for dipole scattering, something, approximation theory, something like that. I don't know. You can Google it.
Oh, okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. But Meplot is easier one, but it tells you only about Mee scattering. It does not. I mean, it is. I think it is, but it will help you. It will help you. So Snell's law. Next thing is basically next shocking thing for you is next thing is that Ewald-Oseen extension theorem. So this will again stretch your brain in another dimension, in the same dimension where the light beam is coming. So when a light beam enters, I'm joking actually, so don't take it seriously. When a light beam enters the material medium, it magnetizes or polarizes, electrical polarization or magnetic polarization. These excitations re-radiate light. Fine, we have read it. In view of linearity of Maxwell's equations, in view of linearity of Maxwell's, we could expect that the total electromagnetic field of the medium is the sum of original and the re-radiated field. It's already understood. Actually, the incident beam is not observed. We know that Ewald-Oseen extension theorem explains that this absence, there are a lot of missing words. I actually assembled it long time back, several years back. I apologize for that. I have not read it after that. As if the oscillating electrons, but I think you know the soul of these sentences, you will be able to grasp. That's all matter actually, not the oscillating electron conspire. It's very funny word. उनमें आपस में मतलब conspiracy हो गई है कि we have to produce field exactly that cancels out original beam everywhere else in the medium. So basically, refraction is like a conspiracy of this light with the matter that सारी direction में cancel हो जाएगा, but एक इस direction में बचेगी, एक इस direction में बचेगी, refracted and reflected light. So when these secondary wavelets are they interact with each other, which are re-radiated. So that's what basically that's the statement. So that means Snell's law is only a first approximation. So this is not compatible with Snell's law, which asserts that refracted ray lies in the plane of incident, which takes no account of the light other than its this plane. Anand, please note this statement. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, ये तुमने पूछा था ना, उसी का ही चोट कर रहा है, उसी पे चोट कर रहा है.
Okay.
This is not compatible with Snell's law, whatever I taught, that which asserts that refracted ray lies in the plane of incident and which takes no account of light other than this plane. Therefore, Snell's law is only the first approximation. तुम Snell's law के base पे पढ़ते हो पहले, वो गलत थोड़ा approximated है. And we must probe deeper to discover the origin of this light, weakly scattered in all directions. I think Asim rightly mentioned yesterday when I was teaching the first course that when I started this debate, when I provoked you in this morning, yesterday morning, I think Asim got provoked and he exactly mentioned this thing. Asim, do you remember?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah. So which is superposed on these more intense unidirections. Okay. Mechanism of scattering by a single particle. Now we can talk about a single particle. So now we can build up an arbitrarily shaped particle, and here we have to please note that we have to now conceptually subdivide into small regions, and now we have to apply oscillating field, and which will induce dipole moment into each region. For example, this. Okay, so you have incident light and you have your part. This can be your planar surface. In fact, planar surface is basically you have different grains or whatever. Okay, so then you can subdivide these in a smaller domains, and then you consider this light electric field vector is talking to each small domains. And so now next concept is very important, that these dipoles oscillate at the frequency of applied field and therefore scatter secondary radiation in all the direction. But in a particular direction, the total scattering field obtained by superposing the scatter wavelet is where due account is taken for their phase differences scatter is coherent. Please note that this is coherent. When it is coherent, when the particle size is of the order of lambda or it is less than lambda, then the radiation is coherent and it is in phase. You have a phase relation. But when the particle size is larger, then this phase relation, this dipole radiation becomes incoherent. Now you can see that you can subdivide any object, whether it is your gold nanoparticle or it is lead sulfide or zinc oxide or your glass or polymer or your bacteria or your protein or whatnot. You can apply the same logic that you can subdivide this into these oscillators, and in this software of ellipsometry, there also we apply these oscillators actually. In order to solve the psi and delta, we apply exactly the same. So now you can consider these small tiny oscillators which are interacting with this incident light electric vector, and now they're re-emitting. Now this is re-emitting light. Now they may be in phase, or they will be incoherent, they will have phase relationship, or they may be incoherent actually. That depends upon the size and shape, and I'm sorry for this typo, size and shape. So that is discussed here. If the particle size is small in comparison to the wavelength, all the secondary wavelets are approximately in phase. And for such a particle, we do not expect much variation in the scattering with the direction. So, that's the reason that Rayleigh scattering is mostly symmetric in nature. But Mie scattering is in forward direction. I told you that Mie scattering, it's not exactly Rayleigh is not exactly symmetrical, but it is cos square. But it happens around it. But Mie scattering is for larger particles, larger than wavelength of light, and then we consider a forward scattering. And the reason is here actually, the physical reason is here, because then these smaller dipoles, they are out of sync, and when the particle size increase, however, number of possibilities for mutual enhancement and cancellation of scattered wavelets that increases. So the larger the particle size, more peaks and valleys in the scattering pattern. And it answers, yesterday somebody was asking me that psi mein, when you increase the thickness of the film, why you have more oscillations? Somebody asked this question yesterday. Huh? Experimental demo class में किसी ने पूछा था ना ये क्वेश्चन? किसने पूछा था? मोनिका कालावत? Monica?
Yes, sir.
Somebody asked this question, na?
Yes, sir. मुझे नाम तो याद नहीं, शायद
आनंद, I think अंचल ने पूछा था शायद, right?
अंचल या फिर आनंद
यही दो ही लोग पूछ रहे थे. So now you have the answer here, that this you see in lights, light scattering also, when you do static light scattering or DLS, there also you get these multiple oscillations. So larger the size of the particle, you have more peaks and valleys in the scattering pattern. This is the conclusion. So I stop it here, and I think yeah, collection of particle, it will become complicated. Now actually next I teach collection of particle. Now when you have several particles, what exactly, how to modify this theory. So today I think I will stop it here. So just a summary, we are not studying here today, but what we studied basically how one atom or molecule interacts with the electromagnetic wave, and how a particle of arbitrary shape interacts. Okay, I think this is sufficient. This theory is sufficient for understanding Lipson symmetry, and we understood what is reflection, what is refraction, and the limit of Snell's law. All these things, all these concepts we understood. So I hope it was useful discussion. So I think it's already 12:45. I think I can return back to the few slides I can take up, because we have still some time, unless you have any question. Then probably tomorrow I can take it up. You absorb, itna hi absorb kar lo, you absorb this much, because it's going to be a bit of heavy dose today. Any question? Anchal?
Sir, can you explain evanescent wave once more? I am a little confused.
Evanescent, चलो मैं lunch की बात करूँगा, है ना? Next session I will share some slides. I have to dig out proper slides. I don't have slides here. If you, I'll share slides properly. Okay, I promise. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any wish list? बोलो बोलो. Deepak बताने. संतोष रेड्डी जी.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello,
बोलो.
सर क्वेश्चन नहीं, एक्चुअली लेट ज्वाइन किया था, तो मुझे बहुत समझना पड़ेगा ये सारा रिव्यू करना पड़ेगा. आज इंटरनेट कनेक्शन बहुत पुअर था.
हाँ, no problem. You will get the recording also. I'm stopping the recording.